given moment, we have two options: step forwards into growth or step back into safety. Dare to succeed and share a moment with us in the moment.
Hello and welcome to another episode of In the Moment with Vikki and Alice. I hope you've had a lovely week and have enjoyed listening to us so far. I don't know about you, but the feedback that I've got has been really lovely. And people asking me to share the link and things so they could share it with other people. That's been like really humbling.
Yeah, I think the majority of the feedback I've got is just that, oh my God, you two are hilarious, this and that. Like, and I totally didn't expect it, like, you to talk about this and that, like, but yeah, no, it's, and like at the end of the message, they've always said, oh, I can't wait to listen to the next one. So I think we're doing all right.
Yeah, Ian, we're not doing too bad, I don't think.
No,
Seems to find it amusing. I don't know why. But my stories of bowel issues, isn't it? That's what's going over the edge.
Bowel issues, spanks.
Yeah, for class, that's what it is.
Here we are.
Yes.
How are you? You okay?
I'm all right. Like, I've had like a proper turbulent week this week, actually. Well, just my job changed, like my job role changed. Yeah. And I wasn't okay with that. So I've kind of got myself a new job. Mm-hmm. So I'm just in like the process, I guess, of when they do the DBS checks and the references and all that sort of thing. Yeah, I'm hoping maybe like a month. I'm hoping. I don't know if I'm on the update system, so sometimes that's quicker as well. But yeah, I'm going to go work in a therapeutic setting with children with like emotional behavioural difficulties. So
that's interesting.
Yeah, more aligned with what I did previously. Yeah, I'm quite looking forward to it. I love getting my teeth stuck into things like that. And then I literally just before this call I've had a mini cry because I did a video.
Why?
Yeah, but
what's going on?
It's like 6 weeks post check-in, post op today. So I like did my little check-in to sort of be comparison, and I, honest to God, like I look bigger. Like it's your mind is crazy. So some days I look in the mirror and I've shrunk, and then the next day I wake up and I'm swollen again, and it's so hard to like deal with. And I was out drinking last night, and I went to Miller and Carter for dinner, so there's a chance that I am probably just bloated from the excess.
You will be. And alcohol is gonna it's gonna make you hold water, so you probably are looking a little bit more swollen than what you were pre-alcohol.
Yeah,
give it a couple of days and it should die down. You should be fine.
I did enjoy myself though. Although, you know what? We went to this makes me sound really snobbish. We went to the Hilton. So I went to Miller and Carter for dinner.
Yeah.
And then we went to the Hilton because that's where my friends were staying. So we just went to the bar at the Hilton.
Cocktails there, by the way, are so expensive.
Are they?
Yeah. Well, when I used to live back in Lincoln and we used to go to the Hilton, do you know, on the Brayford?
Yeah.
So expensive. You're talking like £15 a cocktail.
Well, we used to get one of the trees, and I didn't look actually. If I thought about this, I would have just bought myself a whole tree. But we used to get one of the porn star martini trees at the Hilton in Lincoln, and it was like 37 quid. And I think there was 7 or 9 porn star martinis on the tree, which was really good value. Well, yesterday I got my friend got a glass of Prosecco. I mean, you could have spat in the glass and there'd be more spit than you'd have Prosecco in that glass. Like, it was minimal.
With a porn star?
No, literally just a glass of Prosecco, but it was like the Prosecco was a gobful and it gone.
Oh my God.
And that was £9 a glass. And then I had 3 double gins and lemonade. And then I had a passion fruit martini, I think. That was really strong. And I obviously don't drink anymore. So
no. So I bet that's gone straight to your head.
It was when you sat down, you think, okay, I'm going to go to the toilet, and I walked towards the bathroom, but I had to really be consciously aware of how I was going because I was so paranoid I was going to like stumble. And then when I went outside, my friend picked me up. When I was going outside, I was thinking, oh my God, the air's going to hit me. This is going to be bad. Yeah. It's okay. I made it home.
That's the problem with those cocktails. Like, I quite like a porn star. Like if I was going to go for any, it would be a porn star. Love Ponzo martinis. So after my first show, I went out with Lindsay and we went to Slug and Lettuce in Lincoln, and obviously it's buy one get one free, isn't it? Dangerous.
See, I could drink like Sex on the Beach all day and it not touch me. And I used to at my peak.
That's
before
like 80% water.
Well, so the cocktails aren't, I don't think the cocktails are that bad. Like I'd get drunker on a vodka and Coke. Yeah.
Is that English? Is that proper English?
What?
Drunker.
Wouldn't
it be more drunk?
More drunk, maybe. Drunker. I don't know.
I don't think that's proper English. I think you just made it up.
Who makes that on the podcast? Who cares about your standard English? Yeah, no, drunker. Maybe, I don't know.
Let's get drunker.
Well, you'd say let's get pissed, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
Drunker. I don't know. Anyway.
What they call it up here is... So this is a story. Ross had said, it was after a night out or something, and he was like, oh, I look absolutely rubbered. And I was like, what? So if I said that to you, what would be your first thought?
Well, one was inappropriate and the other one was maybe like a tire. They're the two things that came in my head.
So the first one
was like a sex toy, rubbered. That's what was in my head.
Well, for me, it was like had a condom on, rubbered. Like I'm rubbered.
Yeah.
Sorry, what? It's like rubbered. It's like, yeah, like sloshed, like drunk. And I was like, rubbered. No.
Well, I get it actually. Now, if you took that and broke it down, when you rub something out, you erase it. Like, so it reduces, doesn't it? So if you're feeling rubbered, you'd be feeling worse because you've reduced.
Yeah.
So I guess
like I was like, oh my god, like, what the fuck. But it's hilarious. Sloshed is another one.
Wankered.
Piddled. That's a bit.
That sounds like you weed yourself. I piddled. I say that if I'm on a ride and I'm like, oh, I've piddled.
Why? Does that even happen?
Yeah, it's bad. I had a memory pop up on Facebook from a year ago yesterday, where you know at the skate parks they have them ramps where the kids the BMXing. Well, I obviously have been on the weight loss journey, and I was like, I'm gonna run up it.
Oh my god!
And I ran up it, got to the top, sat down, and was like, I think I've weighed.
No.
On the video, Mum was just laughing her head off.
How's
your week been?
Huh?
How's your week been?
What day are we on? Saturday. I feel like the week is just like merging. Like every day is just like I just don't know what day it is anymore. When did I have a meltdown?
I reckon that was 3 days ago, was it?
Maybe 4. So I was due on my cycle. No, it was Monday because I was due on Tuesday, which is Valentine's Day. But like obviously I suffer quite bad, like a couple of days up like to when menstruation's due. So my head was just like, I don't know if anybody else feels like this or like you feel like this, but it's typically like 3 days around ovulation and then 3 to 4 days before I'm actually due on. It's almost like my anxiety just goes through the roof. And like I'm super sensitive, super emotional, and like everything just feels like it's on my back. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm probably fortunate that I do have them moments, but I don't think they're linked to a menstrual cycle. Maybe they just never noticed. But...
So that's like me. So I did have a few days where I was like emotional, really like sensitive, and not as like strong-minded as what I am now. Like nothing fazed me. But like those like 3 to 4 days, honestly. But yeah, no. So apart from that, Valentine's was a little bit different for us this year. We normally either always go out or go away. But this time, obviously, with Ross being on prep, we had to just do as much as we could at home, to be honest. So that was fine. Wednesday, I don't really know what else. But it has been like a relatively positive week. I've got like 3 clients locked in for photo shoots this year. I'm going to be doing a photo shoot this year. Yeah. Well, my coach asked me, and I was like, you know, me being me, I was like, are you sure? Like, you sure? Are you sure I'll be like good enough? Like, I'm not going to let you down, kind of thing. She was like, yes, please come. So yeah, super excited for that. That is
6th of May.
6th. You see my post?
I saw your post.
So yeah, but oh my god, so I logged on to my daily tracker last night to look at what food I'd left, and I noticed that my calories had changed, and I was like, what the fuck? I was like, what's going on here? And then I realized, obviously I check in on a Saturday morning as well as a Wednesday, and she did mention to me that she would be doing something with food at the weekend. So yeah,
Wounded.
She's dropped it massively. My cardio's up, so on a rest day I do 40 minutes in the morning, and then on a training day I do 30. Training day food, I want to say, is at like 1400, but my rest day is 1100.
Nice.
I am really looking forward to seeing like how my body's going to respond to it over the next 2 weeks, because your follicular phase is like the best phase, like the most optimal phase for your cycle. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to that. Oh, okay, so my training day calories 1538.
Oh, that's more than you thought then. That's like 100 more.
My carbs are down from like just over 200 to 162. Fats are the same, protein is pretty much the same. So yeah, just a small reduction in carbs. Rest day carbs have gone down from, I think they were like just over 100, and they're now at 67 grams.
Wow, that is literally nothing.
But so I was saying to Erin yesterday, so when I was on prep last year, prep journal, I was actually having a nosy through this yesterday, and it actually got me a little bit upset. Obviously we know my prep wasn't most optimal. Moving on swiftly. So at 12 weeks out, so this is 3 months before my show. Let me see if I can find it. My carbs were taken out.
Oh, wow. What, completely?
Yeah. My fats were down to 20 grams, which is like really, really bad. And then I would only get 1 high day a week, and that would be 50 grams of carbs, but my fats would be down to like 17 grams. And that was at 3 months out.
Yeah, that must have been a real slog for 3 weeks to have no energy.
You have no idea, like, well, to be honest, you do. Like, you know how mentally I just wasn't here. Like, I wasn't me at all, was I?
No.
And don't forget, I was doing 75 minutes of cardio every day.
Well, I mean, what you can take from that though is how dedicated and disciplined you are in the fact.
Well, yeah, like if I can survive that,
that's why.
I have anything.
Maybe that's why you had to eat the custard cream.
Don't.
Because your body must have literally been so desperate for something.
It was bad. It was I think it's just taken me so long to actually be comfortable with talking about it, because like for Ross and I, especially me, it's just such a raw time. It was such a raw time, like raw memories, raw feelings. Like I hadn't quite fully processed it all yet. You know, I didn't even recognize myself at the time. It's only when you actually come out of it that you realize, you're like, oh my god. But it's weird now because it feels like I've not even done it. It just feels like a dream. It just feels like it was all a bad dream. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's really weird. Do you ever feel like that with your kind of transformation?
Literally all the time. So as soon as, this is probably my biggest downfall, I work so hard on being present. So I guess what we'll touch on in this episode anyway is my sort of my coping mechanisms through my life has always been to detach. So I'm really good at something happening, it being traumatic, and I just sit over here. Like,
do you just like cut yourself off completely?
Yeah, I just literally detach. So if something awful happens, if I go back into a memory, I view the memory from here, watching me have that memory. I don't see the memory through first person. I see it through a third person, because I detach so strongly from the emotional connection to what I actually felt, that I don't sit in and look at it that way. I look from here.
So you can't physically go back to like a memory and feel how you felt then?
Yeah, I can. It's that I choose for a long time.
Only if you choose not to.
Yeah. So more so now, I do that more frequently to process the deep rooted memories and things. But most of my life I didn't. I was completely like shut off to everything and anyone. Like, you could say I had like a group of friends, a really, really good group of friends, but if they left, okay, that I had no like,
no kind of like emotional attachment. Is that what you're trying to say?
Yeah, I guess that's what it come down to. But it's massive sort of thing that I guess I've had to work on. So even when I do like the truck pull, as soon as the truck pull finished, it gone. Like, it gone. Like, and even in that moment, it's like I was crying, I was overwhelmed, I was bursting with pride. The next day, that's gone. That's somebody else's life. That's not mine. And I have to work so tirelessly to recall the good memories as well, to sit myself back in the headspace of pulling that truck and how actually that felt, which, you know, is why I document a lot of my journey. It's not, you know, yes, other people take inspiration and a byproduct, and I absolutely love that, but it's actually for me, because I need to see it to visualize what it was I felt. And I struggle. Like, so when I watch the truck pull back, I'm like, go on, girl, like, yeah. But if I didn't have any of them pictures, I'd literally forget that ever happened.
It's mad, isn't it? I say to Ross, like, I wish I documented my like show day and everything more than what I did. But like, obviously it was a huge learning experience, and I know for next time, and like we know for Ross's show as well, like we know what to do, you know, what we didn't necessarily do with mine, but I can relate to how you're feeling and how you feel, very much so. It's like when I try and it's almost really hard, like when I try and put myself through like those memories of being backstage, of being on stage again, it's almost like it never happened. It was almost just literally like a dream, like any other dream that I've had. And I kind of like, when I think about, so the first show I was like shitting myself, like absolutely shitting myself, and like I would visually try and put myself through what it was like to go onto stage. Obviously actually doing it was completely different to what I had in my mind. Like, 'cause in my mind it was going to be like, obviously it was catastrophized, so it was going to be really, really daunting, really scary. But like now when I try and put myself through that, it's like, oh my god, it's scary again. It's really weird.
Well, it is naturally. I feel like competing in any sense, if you didn't have an element of fear, I would question what you're doing it for. Like, it's everything you do is to push your comfort zone, isn't it?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And you certainly know in the bodybuilding world that most people on them stages have, well, not most, a lot of people on them stages have a really poor relationship with themselves and their bodies anyway. So it's naturally a state of anxiety, because, you know, I have said before, like, I don't care what people are into, how they want to do it, but bodybuilding, you literally judge someone. It's an assassination of literally who you are, and that very
how you look.
And as a society, we try and tell everyone that it's not about that, but literally in bodybuilding, you put yourself up to be scrutinized.
Yeah, so like they don't care what you've eaten, how many drugs you've taken, how much cardio you've done, this and that. They literally do not care. All they care about is what you're showing them on that stage.
And that is like the crutch, isn't it? That's where, of course, you're going to have anxiety because, you know, like we just said before this podcast about how nervous it is doing it, because you put yourself out there in your most vulnerable state, and other people, when they cast a comment or say something negative, it's not about a brick wall, is it? That's about you. It isn't like your job isn't who you are, your sort of hobbies aren't who you are, but when you're putting yourself out here like this is me, this is you. If someone's like, oh my god, look at the state of her, that's an assassination on me. I don't have a protective barrier around that. And that is the same in the bodybuilding.
Yeah, absolutely. And like with social media, you can pick what you've put out there.
Yeah.
But like with this is like unfiltered, you know, it's just completely natural. And it's like, it's almost, like you say, you are coming out of your comfort zone, and it's like you don't have that safety barrier. Like we are making ourselves completely vulnerable here. But when, like, after the first one, it was almost like, oh my god, what are people going to think? Are people even going to watch it? This, that, all these worries, when in fact what we should have done is been like, do you know what, we've done it. And like for us, it's a huge kind of, what is even the word? We've pushed ourselves out of our comfort zones. So that in itself is like, I don't know, a huge achievement. And regardless, you know, of whether people actually watch it or not, we've kind of, I'm losing what I'm trying to say. Do you understand what I'm trying to say?
I do, yeah, because I think that's probably the difference between, I guess, you had all those thoughts about would it work, would people watch, blah blah.
Yeah,
I didn't have any of them, because if people watch or don't watch, that isn't the be all and end all for me, because this was showing up and doing this was enough for me. Like, and
I think that's what I was trying to get across.
And if other people take value and they want to listen, then absolutely, like, I love that. I absolutely
it's like a bonus, isn't it?
Yeah, but I wouldn't ever I don't base my achievements on whether someone else gets an insight from it or not.
Yeah,
it's them on my comfort zones and what I'm able to do, and this is something that I never ever would have thought I'd be doing.
Yeah, me too, but here we are, third episode in. It's fantastic. It's great.
Yeah, I know on today's episode we wanted to get to know different episodes, like sort of get to know you, get to know me, and on this one you were gonna assassinate me on my character. You're just gonna sort of get to know me and my story and how I came to be what I am.
Still don't know about this fringe. We're rolling. I'm like really, really tanned at the minute as well, so got no foundation on.
All right,
that's a big win for me. Yeah, because normally my skin is normally pretty bad, but sunbedding is like cleared it up massively. So win. Right, so Vikki, where would you like to start? So I think we should start
in the beginning.
So
shut off the bed. That's what I did. Shut off the bed. You know, when right at the end, I'm sure Mum told me this, that right at the end I decided to flip. You know, babies' faces should be facing up.
I don't know.
Yeah, when the baby pops out, head should be facing up.
Yeah.
But whatever I did, I decided to flip round right at the end and shut out of bed. Made my entrance in the world.
It's quite common that when you're giving birth you like poo, don't you?
I don't know. None of my friends have told me that they've pooed themselves when they've had their baby.
My mum pooed on me.
Maybe that's just because your mum wanted to make you feel better.
But
Tells
was
you
it
that.
Molly May? I think I'd seen that she was like, when I was giving birth, I could smell my own shit.
Oh, did she? Nice.
Yeah. So I think it is a common thing.
Maybe.
Obviously, if you're pushing that hard, it's just gonna come out.
Nice. That's how we get onto poo talk every episode. It's great.
What's wrong with us? Sorry, guys. Is that we've got some sort of weird obsession with fucking arse problems? Okay. So, let's start with, so from a young age, you were always larger.
Yeah.
So what was it that stimulated the choice to make that change? Like, what was that turning point where you looked at yourself and you thought, I don't like this, I'm not comfortable, I want to change?
I don't think I had one, in that, and that's the question that everybody always asks, actually. Like, did you look at a picture? Was there like something you did that just made you think, I don't want to be like this anymore? And there wasn't, because I guess because I'd been bigger and then I'd lost weight and then I put it back on and then I'd lost and put back on and all those things had happened. I just didn't, it didn't seem abnormal. That's all I can say, is that it didn't, I don't know what it was about that time. Then, so I was on the back end of therapy then.
Mm-hmm. How old were you
when I started this?
Mm.
What am I now? 29, 27, maybe? Yeah, 2 years. 29.
So is that when you started the big kind of fat loss phase?
Yeah, when I started from £400 was when I was 27. Yeah. So obviously, like before that, my whole childhood had been sort of yo-yoing. And I didn't have like a bad childhood whatsoever. And I was always like loved and looked after and well fed, clearly. I think it was more the things that had gone on. So my early childhood, I had a sexual assault when I was 10.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I remember when I must have been about 13, Mum picked me up from youth club and told me that my stepbrother had come out of prison and that he was like going to be living with us.
Yeah.
He was in and out of prison when I was, well, so around 15, he was on heroin. At 16, he hung himself, and obviously committed suicide. And then through that time, there was loads of people that were around me that had passed away that I sort of knew from like childhood or part of the organisations that I worked with at like Brownie and Guides and things like that. Like loads of people had passed away. My granny passed away from cancer, and then 2010. Oh yeah, 2010 was when Scott died. 2014, my stepdad was diagnosed with cancer, and the Christmas Eve of 2013, and then the day before New Year's Eve, they told us it was lung cancer and it was incurable.
Right.
And that was his third time having cancer, so I think we all thought it was the Hodgkin's lymphoma, and then they treat it and it like prolongs the life, if you like. Said it was lung cancer and it was incurable. So he then passed away in the September of 2014, so not even a year after diagnosis. And then there's a lot in those moments of, I guess, seeing your first body at 16 in the Chapel Arrest was a very bizarre experience. And when my stepdad passed away, I had done a lot of palliative care, so people that are dying in like home care environments as part of my job. I'd said to Mum, like, I know what happens, this is how it works, blah blah, like you won't be in discomfort. And I thought I'd mentally prepared myself, and then what I realized is in that moment when they literally stop breathing, you are not prepared. You are absolutely not prepared. Yeah. And the worst, just before he had like passed away, people were coming to say bye to him. And then my mum, I had moved away from the bed. I was sat next to him on the bedside, and I'd moved away and let Mum sit there because I could see like the breathing was getting laboured and all these like telltale signs.
Yeah.
And then he literally passed away, and mum, honestly, like it's these moments that cause that are the trauma, that mum literally looked at me and said, "Is this real, Vikki? Am I dreaming? Like, wake me up," and was just like hysterical, like crying. And I think that's what triggers like all these feelings within me, that food was my safety around, like, and sort of detachment I had was because I didn't want to sit, and those feelings, that was far too painful for me to acknowledge that any of that had happened, or that I had to be in those positions. And I worked at a school, and I loved being with the kids, absolutely loved it. But my mental health had took like a big turn. And then in the summer I'd gone to ask for help, and she had said, the head there had said that all they could offer was 6 sessions of therapy, and basically, like, given the stuff that had gone on in my life, that wouldn't touch the sides. So I took that as, oh well, I'm just too fucked for therapy. That made me a whole lot worse. I ended up taking a plunge and leaving and going to university to study psychology, which I only started psychology because it was a day and a half a week at uni, and I wanted the school to facilitate me to stay there and do the uni course, but they wouldn't even. So it wasn't even that I had a really interest in psychology, it was just that was the easiest course to do. So I started the course, and then they were talking about this paradigm thing, which is all the symptoms of someone before they have like a mental health breakdown. And I literally was like, oh my God, I'm having a mental health breakdown. I was hearing voices, like it was awful, the state I was in, but I was just functioning like no one would know how bad my head was, because I was a functioning, depressed, anxious person. I went to work, I did my job, I sorted the house out, I saw my friends. Like, just because we associate depression and anxiety with these certain characteristics doesn't mean that's applicable to everybody.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Is it Caroline Flack? Like, she had mental health issues, but how, like, we didn't have a clue.
She was one of the turning points for me. So the year that Caroline died, I had gone to Anglesey on holiday with mum, and I remember thinking in my head, oh my God, if she couldn't get help, there's no hope for me. And I got like, I'm going to the coast, all I envisioned was driving my car into the sea. Every time I'd walk over a bridge, I'd just want to jump off it. Like, it was the constant head was just, every time I was in the car, I'd hope to God that someone would crash into me, so that I didn't have to put my family through the thought that I had committed suicide, but it was an accident. But I just hoped I wasn't here anymore. Like, it really was an awful place to be. And then we were driving in the car back to our accommodation, and I just started crying, and mum was like, what are you crying for? And I was just like, I can't cope, I don't want to go home. Like, and then the Caroline Flack just really bothered me. And then I think after that I had hypnotherapy, and I wasn't a believer.
Was it good? Did it work, do you think?
Well, it worked. I wasn't a believer in hypnotherapy. I wasn't really I didn't believe in any of the stuff I believe in now. So who I was then was nothing like I am now. I was a pessimist. I was the one that would be like, oh, they're just, you go out with your friends, oh, they're just taking advantage of you, they're blah blah, they don't really like you.
It's almost like black or white vision.
Yeah, there just wasn't really a vision. Like, everything was doom and gloom, everything.
Yeah.
So I had the hypnotherapy, and then in my second, it's not what you see on telly either. So it's not like they're going to turn you into a chicken and you start like clucking around the room. It was, and this is what I find bizarre, is people, and there is a lot in psychology around this, that people can implant memories, or they could manipulate words into, when you're in a hypnotic state, you're in like a vulnerable unconscious state, so they can implant thoughts and things into your heads, which is why people can stop smoking and
God.
things like that. Yeah, because they put certain trigger words or thoughts, they like implant them, so when you wake up you have a different set of processing. It's like it's really complex. I've made it sound really simple, but it's not. And so when I was in the state, it was like they say you have your third eye in your head, where this is like, for people that maybe don't know what the third eye is, that's sort of the part in your brain that when you get like a visual representation of something, like you're seeing a picture in your mind, that's your third eye. So she said to me like to do this dartboard thing, and then I was like getting deeper and deeper into a sleep, if you like, but I was aware in this sleep, so I knew what was going on all the way through it, but my body was just so relaxed, like
wow.
And then she was just saying to me like, oh, recall a memory or blah blah. So I was like recording all these memories that I know in my conscious awareness, and the idea is that you recall the memory and it unlocks all the emotion that was connected to that memory and allows you to unlock the trauma. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So as I was going through it, she had said, she just goes link and connect, so you link one memory to the next memory to the next memory until you get down to the root cause of sort of that trauma. So it could be that you've linked, I don't know, falling off the swing and the motion of the swing with a traumatic boat ride that made you feel really sick as a really young child, and then you link that to something else, like they link the memories.
Wow.
So she kept saying that to me, and then I had linked, I remember this in my conscious mind. So we went on a boat trip up north somewhere where Rob was from, and Mum was like, sit on the edge of the boat like a speedboat, and I was petrified I was going to fall in the sea, absolutely petrified. And I had linked that movement of the boat with this other memory. So when she said link and connect, my body, like this is how I changed my opinion of hypnotherapy. My body literally kicked out and spasmed before anything even happened in my mind. Like, and I had no thing. I literally said to her, did you just see that? Thinking, have I just felt that and that's not actually happened? But she said, yeah, I saw it. Like, I literally was kicking. And then from that, a memory popped up. I saw it and I went, nah. And then I cut the session off because I wasn't ready to delve into what I'd just seen. And then on the next session, we went back and we did it all again. And this time I sat with the memory.
Yeah.
So that was a really, really early childhood memory, probably about the age of 3, of being sexually assaulted. And I had linked the movement of the boat with the movement of the sexual assault.
Wow.
That's where my brain that's why I linked the memories.
Yeah.
And then we sort of delved into it with her. And what I said earlier about detachment is I was viewing it from the mirror. So there was a mirror on the wall. I was looking from the mirror at what was going on. I couldn't sit until I really like made myself. I couldn't sit in how it felt for me because that was just too painful. So as soon as I get in some sort of distress, my body goes, and I know it's happening, but I won't feel the feels. So yeah, that sort of all happened. Back to the weight loss bit, all those bits came to a head, and I had the therapy. And then on the back end of therapy, I'd wrote something on Facebook that said the best thing in life is when you learn to let go of things you can no longer control. And that must have been like 3 days before I started the weight loss. There must have been maybe something in me that was ready for a change.
Yeah.
But I couldn't tell you what that was.
No.
And I know people find like losing weight really hard, and I feel quite fortunate for the fact that I would say for the first 4 or 5 months, and it was just dropping off me. I think when I looked on my Facebook thing the other day, I'd lost just over 3 stone in 9 weeks.
Really good.
And I'm sure I ended up losing like 6 stone in 5 months or something like that. It was a lot of weight quick, but I didn't process any of it. So that detachment I had was what was happening. There's the plan, there's the routine, do it. I didn't have any emotional attachment around food, myself,
around
nothing.
The actual journey of the weight loss.
Yeah, I couldn't even tell you in those early days much about what happened.
Or like how you were feeling, like when you would do your check-in at the weekend and see that you've lost X amount.
I never had an attachment to the fact I lost £4. I wouldn't be like, oh my God, that's amazing. I'd be like, okay, that's £4. And if I'd only feel anything if the scales weren't where I wanted them to be.
That's interesting, isn't it?
So what I'd done my whole life is because of that really early childhood trauma, I had latched on to every negative experience I've ever had to reinforce why the world wasn't a safe place. And I can't remember many positive things from my childhood. Not that there wasn't any, there was abundant of them, but I struggled to recall them because in my survival mode, they were irrelevant.
Yeah.
The positives really didn't matter because I just needed to retain the negative so that my view and narrative of the world was always the same.
What can you, like, I think as a whole, generally, I think we always tend to focus on the negatives before we even like look at the positives. Like, what is that? Is that just
early? I would say it's an early experience. It's probably an early experience to do with so much as meeting your need, I would argue, and that sort of comes into attachment styles and people that are disorganized and things like that. But I would say if you've had to meet your own need a lot or felt as if you weren't safe, if something, and I would probably come down, well, I think there's different elements actually. There's the parenting element. If you've got parents that are negative Nancy's, chances are you're just going to adopt that outlook on life. Yeah. And then the other factor is that people that maybe have been through something, and it doesn't necessarily mean it has to be a massive trauma or abuse or what we scale as big traumas, like there's things called micro traumas, which are the little things that happen that build up, that they create these schemas, which is sort of our outlook, it's our perception of the world. And if we have enough of those at an early age, your schema is going to be built on negative experiences.
It's like when I said to you before, like I noticed, was it 20, would it have been not last year, the year before? So when I was in a job and I was really, really unhappy. So I was getting bullied by my manager and this and that, like it was a really, really horrible time for me. And I found myself just declining. But then it would even have an effect on my way of thinking. Like I would catastrophize all the time. And somebody actually said to me, there was like, do you think it's potentially linked to something that's happened in your childhood? And it took me a while to kind of think about it, because so the biggest thing I used to worry about is when Ross used to go off to work, like night shift, I would always worry that, oh my God, like he's not going to come home. And it would be a constant worry for me all the time. And I think I could probably relate that to, so one of the biggest like traumas from being younger was when mum and dad had a car crash. And we was actually supposed to be with them at the time. Luckily we weren't. And I just remember them going off, and we were staying with neighbours that were like godparents to us. And I just remember the woman, Anne, coming through, and she was like, your mum and dad's been in a car crash, this and that. Mum's in a coma. Obviously, dad's not very well. They're going to stay in hospital for a little bit. So that was that. And then I think, when did dad come out? So my dad came out first, but he'd lost like all the skin on his arm. So he had that slinged up, was on shit ton of pills. And we went and stayed with our, like my cousins and stuff. We didn't have a great relationship with them anyway, so that wasn't a great time. And then we went back to our house, bearing in mind at the time we had 3 dogs. and mum was still in hospital, mum was still in a coma. I don't think dad ever took us to see her. I never went. Like, I don't have memories of going to see my mum, so I take it we never went. I just remember, because obviously mum and dad didn't have keys. I had to climb over. I must have been like 6, I reckon 6 or 7. Like, I was young, and I had to climb over. You know where Martin Street is? Yeah, so that's where we used to live. You would go down the tunnel, and then I'd have to like climb over the back wall to get into the garden, and then go through the back door to get into the house. I just remember getting in the house, because the back door was open, got into the house, and I swear to God, like, the dogs were just like quite needy. They'd obviously been to the toilet everywhere, and it was just such a sad time. And then when mum eventually came out, I think it must have only been like, well, she was in hospital for over a week. And then I think it was about 6 weeks after we got chucked out of our house. They were wanting to sell up. Mum and dad were renting at the time. So like, it all happened so quick. And then we moved into our new house. And then I think it must have only been a couple of months, and we had a house fire. It was like all these things, like all these traumatic experiences bleed into nowadays. And I think it's the fear of obviously wondering if mum and dad are going to come home because of the crash. And I think that's something that I link into my thoughts nowadays.
Well, and then they say, don't they, unless you heal your trauma, that you'll bleed into your future. Heal your past, you'll bleed into the future.
Oh yeah, absolutely. But I never realized, like, I never acknowledged the memories as traumas.
Do you know what it is though? Is that we are in our 20s now, and our emotional intelligence isn't the same as we would have had in childhood. And that's what the missing link is for me, is that we naturally move things into our adult life because we have a different perspective on them. So it's hard to sit in the memory of a child when I can say, like, I could see one situation from a million point of views now, but in that situation, I only had my view of the world, and I didn't even have the emotional understanding to know what I was feeling. So that's what's missing from children now, is that if you teach children to understand how the physiology of their body links to an emotion, then they can learn to process that emotion in the here and now and not let it bleed into their future. But we don't.
How do you do that?
Pardon?
How do you do that?
Well, there's a lot of work around sort of, for instance, kids massively say, oh, I've got like a queasy tummy. Mm-hmm. Now that could mean they're anxious.
Yeah.
It could mean that they're actually feeling sick. And that's what we probably always say, oh, you're feeling poorly. So then they've now associated the queasy tummy with illness. But whereas it could be that their queasy tummy means that they're feeling poorly, that they're anxious, and what we've told them that actually, no, that's because you're poorly. You're not anxious.
You're automatically going to link them two together.
Yeah. And a bit like, or you could notice with a young child, you know, when people get angry, typically they'll be like, oh, I'm noticing that your mouth's done this and your jaw's clenched up and your face still going tight. And you'd explain to them what you're noticing. And then you'd be saying, so what are you feeling right now? And he's like, well, I want to throw this. Well, that would tell me that maybe you're feeling a bit cross about something. What is it that you're cross about? And then, you know, you'd have sort of that emotional connection with the child. And a lot of it, you know, when we're in the supermarkets and you see the kids having the strops. And by the way, I'm all for this, but I'm all for boundaries as well. So don't think I'm just some sort of like, oh, they're kids, because I'm absolutely not. But
okay.
If you perceive like a child, this is completely off topic what we're going to talk about this today.
No, what are we like?
If you see a child in a supermarket and they're having a tantrum, let's say, because they really want that chocolate bar and mum has said no, or dad said no, and then they're going, bah! And people walk past and go, what a naughty shit. Like, and you do, you pass and you just think, God, like,
you just think, oh my God, control your child for God's sake.
yeah. But actually, for that child, not having that chocolate bar could be the absolute end of the world. And
It's traumatic for them, isn't it?
They might have worked up all week thinking, I'm going to go shopping with mum on Friday and I'm going to get the chocolate bar, even though they may not have communicated that with anybody. They've created that perception. So a lot of the time it can be around sort of explaining or saying, do you know, I know you're feeling really upset that you haven't got that chocolate bar, and you know, I'm not saying that we'll never have that chocolate bar again, but this week mummy can't afford that chocolate bar. You know, sort of explaining that to the child in terms of acknowledging their emotional feeling, because they are valid, as much as maybe they are being naughty or having a tantrum. Every behavior has a need behind it. And if you think when the kids, this is the classic, when the kids throw things in the trolley and the parents are like, stop putting things in the trolley. But all their life, they've sat on that trolley and they've watched adults walk around the supermarket and put things in the trolley. How do they understand that you don't want that putting in the trolley? Because they think they've literally just watched the world for the last 6 years of their life do that. And now you're like, stop putting that in the trolley. And they're like, but everybody else is putting in the trolley. Why are we not trolley? Because you have to teach them, well, this is our shopping list, so if you want to help like mummy or daddy, why don't you find X, Y and Z and put that in the trolley? You know, like that is how shopping works. You can't just dump everything in the trolley.
Absolutely not, unless you want like a mad shopping spree. But
it's sort of acknowledging the child's feelings and then working with them to see how their body alters or changes, or their eye movement, or what it is, you know, that they feel. And a lot of it as well for me is around not penalizing a child for their reaction. So there's a difference between the emotion and the behavior, and what we say a lot of the time is like, we teach them that anger isn't okay, but anger is absolutely okay to feel angry. And I would say most of my life I have never felt anger until maybe the last 6 months of my life have I started to acknowledge that actually I do feel anger. And I've always said, well, I'm not an angry person, but that's because I've just never allowed myself to be angry, because I guess what I learned early was people that are angry are out of control. I don't want to be out of control, so I don't feel anger.
No, I do relate to that a little bit as well.
And what it is that you teach them that, yeah, your feeling of being angry is okay, and I understand that, but what isn't okay is to throw that chair. What isn't okay is to hit your brother. Like, that isn't okay. So what do we do next time you're having this feeling? Because I'm not having that, that's not okay. And you have to separate like chastising the child and their behavior, because when you're saying that's naughty, like you're naughty, you're creating a narrative in that child's head. You're saying that you are this, like I am fat, you are naughty, I am naughty, and they're not naughty. Their behavior isn't okay, and it's
acceptable.
Yeah. And I guess in my adult life now, obviously, you know what went on with like the last sort of 2 years.
Yes, I do.
And
we'll not delve into that because it makes me very angry.
And I have to separate, and I find it incredibly difficult to separate the person and the behavior, because what I tend to find, I guess the bit I'm having to like learn now is that when you're a child doesn't know, and I guess sometimes that does bleed into adulthood. But when I think sometimes behaviors maybe express who a person is.
Do you think as well, so this is something I wanted to ask in relation to that, can a child pick up, so if they're seeing, say, their mum be angry and aggressive towards them about things, would they then pick up those traits and act maybe in a similar way?
Yeah, I would say, in my opinion, absolutely. And I would say, given the uncertainty that I grew up in, sort of, you know, the there was a lot of stuff that happened in between, and my house was very loud. My brothers used to scrap all the time, and it was just a lot of loudness. I became very hyper vigilant to people's body language, tones, eye movements, like beings. Like I can walk in a room, and I guess what I do is I would walk in a room and I'd know who the threat is. So if I'm in a room full of people,
like an energy.
Yeah, I'd be drawn to the one that I need to stay well clear of. I would pick up that vibe and be like, they need to stay over here.
Yeah.
Because I get the sense that they're not a safe person.
Yeah.
And I guess that comes down to intuition, but I think that's a lot of how, in order to be safe in an environment where maybe the parents were hostile, or certainly kids that witnessed domestic abuse. I worked with one lad who had witnessed a lot of domestic abuse, and someone had picked up a shoe once to throw it, and they burst out crying, absolutely poof, and it was completely out of character, but it obviously just triggered that split second of watching whatever they'd seen at home. And it just and I think that and certainly how they reacted to situations said a lot about being in those environments. It's not not that that's anyone's fault either, and I think we have to, you can say, well, the dad should leave or the mum should leave, but like, we are products of our childhood and their childhood. Like, we only know what we know, and you can't pass judgment or blame upon anyone.
No, absolutely. No, I agree.
So
well, that kind of went on
the topic of Vikki's like weight loss journey, wasn't it?
Oh, so where were we anyway?
Basically right at the start. So this is more about trauma, this episode.
This is going to be an interesting
one to try and title. I think that
part 1, part 2, part 3, part 4, part 5.
But do you know what, the first time I ever felt proud of myself was when I got to the top of Ben Nevis, and I recorded a TikTok on the way up, and I said on there, even if I don't make it to the top, I'm really proud I've got this far. Like, I always identified as a big
thing, isn't it?
I didn't think it at the time.
Did you not?
At the time, I was just like, I'm going to go do Ben. Like, I was going to Scotland to do the bungee jump and see my friend. Lauren, who I was living with, was going to Scotland, and she said she was going to climb Ben Nevis, and I was a bit like, oh, okay, I'll climb Ben Nevis. And that was it. Like, I didn't have any process of any of it. I just thought, oh, fuck it, it's something to do. And it was only when I started walking up, and then this woman made a comment to me, and then I started like doubting myself, and I was about to give up. I was about to turn around halfway through, and this lady, you didn't. No, but it literally was because there was a lady and a man who had seen Pixie, my dog, a bit earlier on, and I was sat, and she must have been like, looked at me and thought, she's going to give up, and she said, come on then, Pixie, let's go, like this. And I was like, I got up and I carried on, and she walked with me to the top, her and a partner. And it's because I wholly say because they walked with me that I made it to the top.
Really?
Wholly. I would have gave up and walked back, but because they were there with me, and almost I had a backing, I had someone that backed me.
I had that accountability as well, do you think?
No, because I didn't have the investment in there. I didn't care whether they were there or, like, accountability to me is some level of respect that you have to hold towards someone, and I guess I didn't have that. It was just someone to walk with.
So obviously you just say they come along and it was like, come on, Pixie, but then you actually, like, if you didn't really care, you could have just been like, oh, do you know what, I'm actually just going to turn back. But for whatever reason, because
I always had that in me. Like, I always have the want to see things through. And I think a lot of my sort of, like, especially, I know Chantel was worried when I went, but I would literally crawl to make it to the top. Like, I would go on my hands and knees to make it. Even if I killed myself doing it, I would do it. And so I guess when I had the thought to turn around, that's because the overpowering self-negative part of me had overruled that sort of push to get up and go, but that lady and the man like pushed that through. So that was like the first time I felt proud, and then things were on sort of like an up, and I was really pushing myself, building like a relationship in a professional capacity, with someone that was completely unknown to me. And when you've expressed like your deepest insecurities and vulnerabilities, and someone's still there, that was a big thing for me. And then
I think that's a thing for anybody to be able
I'd never let anybody in. There was never anybody.
Okay.
So that was
bigger for you then.
There was one man prior to that I'd let in. Like, women weren't so bad, but men were I was hard to let a man near me. There was one guy at the school who, when I was having my bad days, I'd literally go and sleep on the sofa in his office, and he just like took me under his wing a bit. And I still see him now. And then, so this was like the second guy, I guess, that I had shown a vulnerable side to. And then that all went to pot. There's a lot of things that went on, but I guess how I internalized it was a lot to do with the sort of the last time that we saw each other, things were fine. And I had got something in a conversation had triggered me. I had gone into a complete state of like disconnection again, but I felt a lot of guilt and shame associated with this event. And then the person had then said, you can't be here all day. And then I took that as they don't want me here. And that wasn't the case, but that's how my brain internalized it. And I got my stuff and I left. And then we tried, like, I'd gone back like half an hour later and sort of sorted things out. But from then it went that loads of things then just happened, and it was on a downward spiral. And for me, the hardest bit is that I showed someone the ultimate vulnerability, like that I couldn't have been any more vulnerable than I was then. I was dismissed. That's what I think I still struggle with now. Like, that whole situation that went on, I still find massively triggering, traumatic. Every time something bad happens, I flick straight back to that because I haven't processed it, I haven't worked through it, and nothing seems to change. So the weight loss around that time was literally just me surviving, and I spent probably 3 months in a state like, that's why I say Chantel is probably the only person that knows how bad it was during that time. And this is why I say that like weight loss doesn't equate to happiness, because I had lost like 8 stone then, and I was the worst I had ever been. It's like a point where, I mean, she walked in the house and I was upstairs in one of the bedrooms, literally in a fetal position, crying, and I couldn't move. It was awful. And I think when you're in a state, it's like so if you're here and this is the new you, and this is the old you're too far from either. You can't go back, because that's just, you've let go of so much of yourself to go that you can't go back now. But this is too far away that it's unachievable, and you're literally stuck in this state of abyss where you have no sense of self, no sense of worth. Like, it is, they call it like ego dissolution, I think, where you just lose like all sense of everything. And I completely had gone, like, and then all this stuff was still going on, and I was presenting in one way, and I even looked at some of the messages the other day when me and Chantel were looking through my phone, and I was trying to explain what was going on for me, and I was met with just,
it was almost like it was thrown back at you, wasn't it? It was like, oh well, it's a kind of like, well, it's your fault. It's like this other
everything came back to me, and then I began to question my whole perception of reality. I lost, and even now I still struggle with when something goes wrong. I'm like, well, it must be me. because that's sort of, and I say this lightly because this is where I find it difficult, is I don't always think that, you know, people act in the way they do when they're in a certain way as well. But that doesn't excuse any of it. And yeah, I find,
especially when it's when it should be a professional relationship, you should be able to separate emotions.
But then had I this is why I find it difficult, because I don't like slandering anybody, because everyone does what they do at the time, and that is just how it is. And the fact is that, like, had I not embarked on the weight loss journey and done some of the workshops and done all these things, I wouldn't be where I am now. So there has to be an element of gratitude. And even in that hardest situation and all that stuff that went on, if none of that had happened, I wouldn't have had the balls to finally leave, and I wouldn't have then picked myself up. I honestly don't believe I would have pulled the truck, because I would never have signed up with you. I never would have had that training plan. I honestly believe I never would have pulled the truck or built up that confidence. I never would have done a photo shoot, because that was never even on the cards. And we won't be sat here now doing a podcast. So that's the difficulty, that even in the hardest parts of my journey and losing weight, that there has to be an element of gratitude, because if that had not happened, I wouldn't be where I am now.
Yes, no, I agree. But I think your feelings and emotions are quite valid surrounding how it ended. And it's not like you're completely, I don't know, like you say, slandering, but you're just being honest and open about it.
And I would still always err on the side of caution, like, because I'm just not about that. I'm just not, like, it happened, stuff still happens, not necessarily with me, but stuff still goes on, and people make their own choices, and people will make their own choices. And I'm not saying that, you know, people don't have value, because of course they have value, and that's the balance, isn't it? That, yes, I have my own thoughts, feelings and emotions, and when I talk about my journey, I like to be honest, but I always feel like I have to hold some level back out of respect. And that's what it comes down to, that I respect myself enough. And some of it is fear, I'm not going to lie, some of it's fear, in that I still fear a backlash. I still fear having and this is obviously how I guess my brain interpreted it, is that I had no perception of reality then. I was so broken, and I was literally a shell of the girl I am now, that I worry that if I open myself up or say anything, that I would give the power back for them to be back in that state. And I absolutely fear that. So a lot of the time it is out of respect. There is an element of fear. And I guess the intricate parts, like the he said, she said, what happened, they're not really the be all and end all of it. Like, the point was, that's how I felt. And I guess the reason that we justify it by telling people those situations is because we want people to see that our feelings are valid, rather than just accepting that they are valid because I say they're valid. Like, that happened, this is how I felt, that's valid enough for me. I don't need to explain to you the intricate messages or the situation or any of those things, because it is just what it is. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah. And it, like you say, like, it is what it is. And I know Ross is probably going to see this and be like, oh, I fucking hate it when she says that. But I do believe, like, it is what it is. And I feel like you've progressed, like, the person you were when you came to me to the person you are today is like two different people.
Yeah, you were. So I think I'd left in the March, and it was only because you'd posted that competition, and I entered the competition, and I had absolutely no intention of having any coach anywhere fucking near me after that. I'm like joking. Like I kept saying to Chantel, nah, I just do it on my own. And I was really worried that by doing it on my own, I'd get fat again. Like there was massive insecurities going on. And then Chantel had see, like literally in my head now, I can hear this is the reality. I can literally hear the voice of panic that I've said too much in this podcast. Literally crazy. It honestly, it's the fear. Anyway, so I told Chantal I wasn't. You did that competition, and then you had said that I didn't win, but you'll do the coaching stupidly cheap. Like it was unreal cheap.
So
and
stupid cheap,
it was like 8 weeks for like 45 quid or something, I think.
Yeah.
Something like that.
I think oh no, it might have been
80. Was it 40 quid a month? Like
I want to say it was 65 for 2 months, because that's where I started. So I think it would have been 65 for 2.
Yeah, so you said like 8 weeks for 65 quid, and then I said to Chantel, I was like, that's so cheap, and I don't know what I'm doing about pulling a truck. I don't know how to train. And she was like, well, you know, you'd be silly not to, blah blah. So obviously I signed up, and I'd said to her, so that was 3 months out from the truck pull, and I'd said to her, well, after that I'll just go and get a PT at the gym the last month just to push the muscles, and then like I'll go back on my own. And that was literally my plan. And then it just sort of escalated, didn't it?
Yeah.
now yeah.
Look at us now.
This is why I guess we'll talk about this on a different podcast about how to choose a coach.
Yeah.
But look, I love the fact that I never feel stood still. You know, when you're like certainly on the weight loss journey, when you're just in a deficit for so long, that you're just doing the same thing all the time. Whereas what we've done is like bulk reduce. And I feel like we're on a pattern that it's hard not to get bored, and you're always pushing. Like I had no aspirations to a photo shoot whatsoever, but towards the end of the truck pull you were like, oh, do you fancy a photo shoot? And I was like, oh, okay then, because I never would have had the belief that I could do a photo shoot. So
I think that's the thing, like you say, we will probably delve into we'll delve into like looking into coaches, finding who's suitable to you, because you know, me as a coach for you is probably like most suitable to you, but depending on somebody else, like what they want to do, I might not be most suitable for them. It's literally just about finding who you bounce off well. Is that right?
Who you bounce off, yeah.
So who you bounce off, you know, a coach that I would say you would look up to what they do, how they push themselves as an individual. Like, I think one of the biggest things I always say is when you're looking for a coach, if that coach isn't personally pushing themselves, challenging themselves to be the best of the best ongoing, how can you expect them to push you in that way? Does that make sense?
It does make sense. It's an interesting thought.
Yeah. I do think, because like I don't know, I feel like, because like for me, I don't like to be stood still. I like to always have the next thing planned, you know, and always just, you know, go for big goals and just really push myself out of comfort zones and stuff. So, you know, it's something that I'm big on as a coach.
We'll definitely do sort of a topic around that. I know you've got a one-to-one client, haven't you, soon? So
yeah, I have PT session.
Well, so we'll put a pin in that for now, and we'll definitely come back to coaching. I definitely, you know, if people have sort of any questions or things they want us to answer, or if they like listen to our podcast, like we really appreciate sort of letting other people know if you liked it, and then they might like it. If you like to poo talk, then let them come in.
There will always be an element of either arse or shit talk. I'm sure. I'm pretty sure every single podcast we've done has had some sort of arse or shit reference in.
Well, the house, yeah, the three. So there was the spank one with like me going to the toilet, and then there was me. This is obviously the issue is me.
I don't have arse issues.
Then wait, what was the arse one today?
Giving birth.
Oh, well, you brought that one up, so actually they're not all
That
me.
can be my. Although I've not given birth, so
We're on 2-1 now. So
okay. But yeah, no, I definitely think next we could even do part 2. I definitely think this one deserves a part 2.
okay, so next week we'll do part 2 and actually try and phone in on my journey rather than get sucked into some trauma thing.
Yeah. Oh, it's been interesting though, hasn't it?
Well, hopefully it's enlightens other people, and that's what I mean about being reflective on my journey, is that at the end of the day, it's not linear. It's not a case of weight goes down, happiness goes up. That is not the process. So that is what we're teaching. Yeah, so until next time then.
Cool. Okay, yeah, if anybody has any questions surrounding this, anything, you know, if they're wanting any more detail, please do message either me or Vikki.
Yeah, have a good week.
I think we'll put your link into the your PDF, your booklet.
Yeah, okay.
We'll put that in, guys, so you can access that. It's free, isn't it?
Yeah,
cool. And any questions, just fire away, and we'll make sure that we cover them next time.
Yeah, speak soon.
Bye.